rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, welcome back to Rebel Force Radio. Hope you're having a great summer. I took a little time off last week, not from Star Wars, but from Rebel Force Radio. Never take time off from Star Wars, but we're so happy to be back with you this week. Lots to talk about. Real fun show ahead for you, including Nathan Johnson from thedirect.com. Now, you remember the last time we were all together, we were talking about this story about how Stuart Beattie, I think I'm going to finally find out tonight how to pronounce his last name, but Stuart Beattie was the original screenwriter for what was at the time planned to be 3 Obi-Wan Kenobi feature films. He kept his writer's credit because many of the concepts that he had for that first film that he actually completed the writing of was recycled for the Kenobi series, season 1, if there's another season. But anyway, the writer of that story, that had the interview with Stuart Beattie, Nathan Johnson, will be joining us in a little bit, and it'll be great to talk to him. He's got some more, he's published actually some more stories over at thedirect.com based on that interview. So hopefully we can get to maybe to the bottom of some of the questions that we had after reading some of that stuff. Also in the Cantina, our buddy Kyle Newman, One Up. That's right. One Up is now, as of today, available for you to stream on Amazon Video. It's been a long time coming. This is a project that Kyle has been telling us and Rebel Force Radio listeners for a long time about. And I know he's very proud of it, so he'll be joining us in the Cantina a little bit later. Yeah, and some headlines. We got a few stories that we thought we would bring to your attention. So very excited to be back. And I know one guy who's excited to be back, of course, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Glad to be back. Took the week off last week to celebrate summertime and 4th of July and everything. So I'm feeling recharged, refreshed, and ready to entertain you. And this week, we're going to do just that here on Rebel Force Radio. I had a great weekend with Kevin Lyle last week, and he was in town with Norse Legion hosting a booth at Fan
Great
Expo
weekend
Chicago.
with Kevin Lyle?
Yeah.
Said no one ever.
It sounds a little creepy too, but no, we were hanging out, me and Kevin, and Tyler was with us, Tyler Page, and we were hanging out there at the Fan Expo. And Kevin's booth, Norse Legion, which was vibrant and active all weekend long. Oh, by the way, he was giving out these Norse Legion medallions with the Darth Vader sculpt on it, and he was giving them away to anyone who came up and mentioned Rebel Force Radio. And so he ran
cool
out.
Is that?
So you guys kept him busy all week. He ran out. And Kevin gave me a gift, too. He gave me this vintage C-3PO droids. It's kind of a Bendham sort of thing.
Look at that.
He has a string around his neck, and we don't know why. He can hang 3PO. But this was really cool, and it's vintage. It's from 85, according to the stamp on the foot. Oh. And he's fun. So he's in the collection now, and I really appreciate Kevin for passing that off to me. But Kevin's booth was right by the autograph hall. All of the autograph tables were lined up against the wall, and Kevin's was just across the carpeted pathway there. And
a lot of celebrity foot traffic.
A lot of celebrity foot traffic. You know, Anthony Daniels was there, speaking of C-3PO. But I look over and I see Matt Lanter there. And I had no idea Matt was coming into town for this.
It was I saw it posted on Instagram. It was a last minute edition.
Yeah.
He was going out there.
I caught his eye and he waved me over. And I was like, wow, this is cool. So I walked over there and he was sitting right next to Ashley. And Ashley was there with David Eckstein. And I had a big reunion with those guys right there in the autograph hall. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's
it was
great.
so much fun. And so I hadn't seen Ashley Eckstein in person for so long. I mean, we were like ships in the night in Nashville, passing each other. I never saw her there. And of course, couldn't get near her in Anaheim at Star Wars Celebration. But here in Chicago, she was just right there. And it was so, I mean, she said the nicest things to me about Rebel Force Radio and introducing me to all the staff there, saying she's known me longer than anyone in Star Wars, you know, and she was bragging to people about how Rebel Force Radio was her first ever Star Wars interview. And I was just really blown away. And to see Ashley work these conventions is so incredible. She spends time with the people, you know, I mean, really, and puts so much energy into those meet and greets.
Yeah.
That just anybody who walks away from her table feels really good about themselves and good about the encounter they just had with Ahsoka Tano. And she makes you, you know, feel like a Jedi. And to be reminded of this last weekend was really, really impressive. I was talking to David for a while, and I said, have you guys been able to go out to any restaurants or anything, see the city? And David's like, that never happens. That never happens. Ashley is totally exhausted after each day at the convention center because of how much energy and focus she puts in.
Yeah, it gives it 100% with everybody. Yeah. It's not like you know, what did Carrie Fisher infamously call it? The celebrity lap dance, I think it was, where, you know, you go in, you shake. Now, I mean, you know, Carrie kind of made a lot of jokes about it, but she also would do all kinds of crazy things with the fans that took the time and paid the money to, you know, get a photo taken with her. But you've seen those assembly line. You come in, you do a quick handshake, or you got the glass, but you know, now the fiber or the you know, the plastic between you and the celeb, and you know, snap, 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 you're out the door. But that's not the way. It's certainly not the way with Ashley Eckstein.
And a lot of times the convention staff is cracking the whip on these guys, because what conventions do is they oversell autograph tickets, and a lot of times they're yelling at the talent, keep them moving, keep them moving, keep them moving. And so Ashley, it was just such a great encounter with her. And she said, I want to see the boys, meaning my sons, who she knows and hasn't seen in a while. I mean, when David was still playing with the Padres and they came into town, Ashley would leave tickets for my family, and we would go sit with her in the players' wives section during the game. So she's known my kids since they were little. And she's just got such that great memory and stuff. So she wanted to see them again. And I wasn't with them at that moment, but they were coming, and I was going to go meet them. And so I walked them back to the autograph hall. And it was, you know, I didn't get the chance to get close to Ashley because all of the volunteers and everything were keeping us back because we weren't in line for the autograph and all of this stuff. And so I said, well, let me try to get her attention. And she's talking to this woman. I'm just talking 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And there's still, you know, a line of people there. And so I said, when the woman walks away, I'll get Ashley's attention. And so the woman walks away, and I'm like, Ash. And my boys are like, you didn't even try. They're like all on me, you know, what was that? What was that? Speak up, you know. And I like, no, because I felt so weird about it, because the woman was walking away from the table and she was wiping tears away from her eyes. You know, that's what I mean about these encounters with Ashley. It's like really profound for people. And I don't know that people are traveling from far away and they're paying top dollar to have these meetups with her. And I don't want to interrupt that. I got to respect that, you know? So my boys were really disappointed with my lackluster attempt to get Ashley's attention. But I did see her the next day, and the boys weren't there. And she said, I saw the boys, but I just, you know, I was so focused on the people coming in. I couldn't take a break. And then when I did have a second for a break, I was looking for you guys and you were gone. I'm like, oh, God.
Passing ships.
But still, she signed Dylan's poster and everything. And because Dylan's always had just been in love with Ahsoka Tano. It was just really, really nice to reconnect with Ashley. And so we'll be doing that here on the show too. Once her convention schedule cleans up and she gets, the San Diego Comic-Con out of the way, all that stuff she's doing, that she's going to come on RFR. She really wants to come on and give us updates on the things she's been doing, the videos she's been doing. She's got a book. She's got all kind of things going on, and just, to talk Ahsoka with her.
Yeah. Lots happened since the last time we spoke with her here on the show. That's for sure.
And more is going to happen. She's going to be, her voice will be heard in the Tales of the Jedi.
Yes.
Series of shorts that come out this fall, I believe, that comes out this fall. And 3 of those, it's a 6-part series. 3 focus on Ahsoka.
Yeah, 3 focus on Ahsoka and 3 focus on Qui-Gon / Dooku.
So that'll be really good. Yeah. And so we'll get the scoop on all of that from Ashley when that happens. But and
they still haven't released anything official about that as far as footage. The people that were at Celebration happened to be at that particular panel. They got treated to see a complete episode.
Right.
But no trailer. In fact, I don't even think we've seen so much as a still. No production shots, anything from it. I think all we've had is a logo.
Yeah, I think I saw some pictures, but I don't know if people were snapping photos during the panel or if those were released officially. But
probably
apparently the episode they showed in Anaheim was the baby Ahsoka episode. So most likely how Plo Koon came across her.
That's Master Plo to you.
Master Plo.
Yeah.
And extracted her from her family and took her off to be a Jedi and everything. And so it was just great to see Ashley. I mean, really, I kind of felt like all those people, despite knowing her. I actually broke out into a sweat while I was talking to her. I was fanboy. I was fanboying.
You were fanboying over Ashley.
It must have been, just years since the last time I had seen her one-on-one like that. 5 years, maybe. 5 years. Now, of course, we've had her on the show and everything, and that's the great thing about this show. But to be around her in person, it's like nothing I take for granted. And anybody who's met her, I'm sure, will feel the same way. Same thing with Matt Lanter. Matt's great, but Matt's just like one of the guys. He really is. He's despite all of his success and his model-like good looks and all of that stuff, he is one of the most down-to-earth dudes. And it's just so nice to see him anytime. And he wanted to show us operation photos of his. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, I got him on my phone right here. I don't know if I want to see that. I don't want to see that side of Matt Lanter. I like the handsome exterior. I don't necessarily want to see the gory interior of Matt.
I kind of wanted to see it, and I thought maybe I had my chance there at the autograph hall.
But still got those pictures, man.
I turned around and I was like standing in front of a whole line of people waiting to meet him. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know I was standing in front of a line here. And I'm like, get up there and go see Anakin.
Leave it to Jimmy Mac to be cutting in line, stopping people from getting up where they need to be. People paid good money. It sounds great. So Fan Expo Chicago, would you recommend this convention to others? Because this is the second year for this particular show under this flag.
It's Wizard World. It's the formerly Wizard World. So it's the same old convention that's been there since the mid-'90s, it feels like, in Rosemont, right by O'Hare Airport. So it's been there for years and years, and it's just been sold. I'd like to say, though, that a lot of the same old staff from Wizard World are still working there, especially in the PR departments and stuff.
So then is C2E2 still C2E2?
Yeah. And
that never changed names then.
That's going to be at the beginning of August.
Oh, my gosh.
So I'm really conventioned out right now. I mean, in the last 10 weeks, we had Nashville, we had Anaheim, and then I had this one over the weekend. It's like I'm done for a while, man. I really
need to take a breather.
Yeah, C2E2, I don't know is going to happen. I think it's the same week I am going to be at Rancho Obi-Wan.
So
at the beginning of August.
Yeah, we'll have some details coming up soon on Rebel Force Radio about Gina Mac's trip to Rancho.
Yes, as always, no fan left behind. So this trip to Rancho Obi-Wan is something that I want to be able to include everyone who listens to this show. So we have something kind of special planned. And like Jason said, we'll have some details for you probably next week. Oh, but that's going to be a lot of fun. So.
Good.
Just if anyone's wondering, though, we're not going to be doing like an in-person hangout at Rancho Obi-Wan. I don't want to be like teasing that. That's not going to be happening, but it'll be something that'll happen virtually that I think everyone will have a great time with. So,
all right.
Coming soon.
Let's do it. Let's get into headlines. Kyle Newman coming up later on in the Cantina. But first.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news.
Come closer, I have good news.
All right, joining us here on the line is reporter from thedirect.com, Nathan Johnson. He had that great story that we brought to you last time on Rebel Force Radio about how the original idea for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was a trilogy of films, and it was going to be penned by a guy named Stuart Beattie, and Nathan landed the interview, and we got all of the details on how the show came to be and how it evolved to be what we saw. So thank you very much, Nathan, for joining us. Appreciate it.
I'm just happy to be on here, happy to be a part of the show. I think I said in my email when I reached out to you guys, I've been a listener since, I think, 2016, something like that. So it's a pleasure to be on here, a pleasure to talk to both of you.
Wow. Well, it's an honor, and it's always so great when we get a great scoop like you provided at the Direct. And there's this interview that you did with Stuart has evolved into multiple stories that you've posted. So we encourage everybody to go over there to thedirect.com and check these out. But I got to ask you, man, after reading that first story, and if you listen to the podcast, the burning question I had was that, and to remind our listeners, that he had pitched 3 films because he believed that there were 3 steps in the evolutionary process to get Obi-Wan Kenobi from Episode 3 Obi-Wan to Old Ben in Episode 4. And he did a masterful job talking about the first 2 steps, but he doesn't talk about the third. Did he ever get to that detail with you?
So, like you said, he talked about the first, which he said translated to this season of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then he went a little bit in depth on his second story idea, which was centering around Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, the cosmic force, how he gets to the point to where he sacrifices himself in A New Hope, like the build up to that.
Right.
I got to be honest, I didn't even think to ask what
That's all right.
what
That's
the
all
third
right.
story
Yeah.
was supposed to be about. When I went back and listened to the recording, I was like, I probably should have at least asked him. But then I was there was other points that I wanted to touch on, other things that I definitely wanted to ask him. The conversation was nearing an hour.
Yeah.
And then I think at one point, I don't remember if we put this in one of our articles, but I asked him if he had submitted any treatments for a second or a third movie, and he said he hadn't. So that might have been.
They were just ideas. At that point.
I have a behind the scenes question. A lot of times I'm under the assumption that these creative guys, they submit these scripts and everything, and that becomes property of Lucasfilm. And there's an NDA involved with a lot of these creatives where they really don't go out talking about the ideas that got rejected, or they don't talk about being bounced off of a project. Yet Stuart seemed very open with you. Was that a surprise to you? And were there any restrictions on him?
I don't really know how restrictive the whole thing was. I don't know what he was allowed to say, wasn't allowed to say, but it was kind of a surprise when I was going into the interview and I was prepping for it, trying to come up with questions. I obviously wanted to ask him things that I felt like I could get good answers out of, things that hadn't been known before, but I wasn't expecting something to that degree. some of the things that we got, I was pretty shocked about.
Yeah, he goes into great detail about the behind the scenes process, very big story moments. And he gave you enough information for at least 3 different pieces, and each piece is just as compelling as the other 2 have been. And yeah, so I was just really surprised at his candid nature.
We actually put out 4. Did you see the 4th one?
Oh, was there a 4th one?
There was the first one about the trilogy. There was the second one was about Reva. And the third one was about Cody, and then there was a 4th one about Vader's original role.
We did talk a lot last week about things being revealed in his script. Was there any Darth Maul mention at all?
There was, from my understanding, in his plans, he never had Darth Maul in at all. That was never talked about. And then when we were talking about Vader's role, he specifically said that he wanted Vader to be the main antagonist from the beginning. So Maul was never mentioned. He never even said anything to me about Maul. And then when I asked him about other legacy characters or just characters from other projects, Maul's name never came up.
Okay, interesting.
You know, it's what I found most fascinating about his perspective on the Vader and Obi-Wan relationship. And he, in this interview, he repeats basically the same thing kind of over and over. And that is that he really believed that one of the main purposes, and I'm quoting you in the story, for writing Obi-Wan Kenobi was to show the Jedi Master going on a journey of accepting the fact that his friend Anakin Skywalker had been killed by Darth Vader, because Obi-Wan himself tells Luke in A New Hope that Vader betrayed and murdered Anakin. And I bring it up because he mentions it several times, that this was very, very important, despite the fact that George kind of gets around that with the famous certain point of view speech in Return of the Jedi. Did you get a sense why that seemed so critical, so important to Stuart?
Really, like you said, he talked about it quite a bit. Once again, I don't remember. There was some of the things that we talked about that ended up not making it into the articles. So I can't really remember if this quote made it in or not. But he talked about the line from Return of the Jedi saying, Obi-Wan once thought as you do. Yes. He said that was a really big inspiration point for him, and that he did want to touch on the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, as well as Obi-Wan and Vader, as in 2 separate people, 2 separate relationships.
Yes.
But he didn't go into any kind of great detail on why that was so important to him. But he did say that was how he actually got the green light to write the original film script, was based off of those ideas and those lines from the original trilogy.
Yeah, I guess Stuart was pitching Lucasfilm, and they were extremely resistant to the idea of Kenobi leaving Tatooine. They were extremely resistant to the idea of him having another showdown with Darth Vader. He had to convince them of all of this stuff. And I find that to be really interesting. But even more interesting is the fact that in the final streaming series, there's never any real blatant attempt by Ben to try to bring Vader back into the light, trying to get the Anakin and bring Anakin back to the surface. You never really hear any dialogue, unless I'm missing something. Do you guys recall any moment when you felt like Ben Kenobi believed there could be some way to redeem Vader or
I guess the big apology. I think that, to me, I think that's the thing that comes closest to it. Because in Revenge of the Sith, and Nathan points this out, or rather Stuart points it out as Nathan's talking to him, you don't really see much of that moment in Revenge of the Sith where he senses that there's, still good in him.
Right.
But to your point, Jim, he's not real explicit in it. I just think that when he says, "I'm sorry for all of it, Anakin," and that's the moment when Anakin, I sort of absolves Obi-Wan of that guilt that he's carrying when he lets him off the hook, essentially.
Maybe I was just looking for a stronger effort,
right.
a more blatant attempt to say, like to plead with him, remember who you were, where is that person? Something like that. There must be Anakin still in there somewhere. I don't know. What do you think, Nathan? Was there anything in the Kenobi series that made you feel that Ben was actually trying to find a way to bring Anakin back to the forefront?
Well, it's something that me and a lot of my friends over at the direct.com talked about all throughout the series, specifically after episode 3 when they met for the first time, and then episode 6 when they actually had the bigger fight and you had that dialogue. But like you said, it just seemed really brief, and like that he would make more of an effort to break through. Because I think I told some of my friends in Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan is so caught up in everything that's happening. All of this has been dumped on him so quickly, and he feels so overwhelmed. You kind of get an understanding of why he would do what he did, but then he's had all this time to think about it, and then when he finally gets his chance, you think he would make a little bit more of an effort. But as far as things that Stuart said, it seemed to me like his version, his movie script, had a little bit more dialogue, was a little more dialogue heavy. He still had the helmet getting slashed and Anakin coming through. He still had all that in there, but from the things that he said, it sounded like his focused on that a little bit more.
There's a quote that you have here from Stuart, and I think this is interesting. He says, I followed up with, how does someone talk about Darth Vader betraying and murdering Anakin and actually believe it? There's got to have been more there. And then Padme saying to Obi-Wan as she died in his arms, there's still good in him. And then the idea that he thought Anakin was dead. He thought, and this is the logic here I think Stuart's using, he says he thought he killed his brother this whole time.
Yeah.
So she was wrong. But he's actually alive. And then Obi-Wan gets the flash, oh my God, maybe she was right. Maybe there is still good in him. So where did Vader get that sense from Obi-Wan, that Obi-Wan thought there was still good in him? It was really from that line in Return of the Jedi that convinced them to hire me to write the story. So again, reiterating what his pitch was, but he's thinking, look, if he was wrong about Anakin being dead, then he could very well be wrong about Padme's assertion that there's still good in him.
It would have been interesting in that final showdown, though, if Ben said something to Anakin along the lines of, you must still find the light side of the Force. Padme believed there was still good in you. It would have been maybe too much on the nose, but
well,
it would have been nice
never
to tie
really
all that together.
But it would have been an interesting juxtaposition. We've seen, and I don't know if he brought any of this up at all, Nathan, but I'd like to get your view on this. It would have been an interesting contrast. We've seen Sith try to lure people to the dark side. We've never really seen a light sider trying to court people over to the light side.
Well, Luke was trying to do that with Vader, I think, in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, the "come with me" speech. There is some of that, but not high stakes during a battle. You know, like I'm thinking of sort of like the version of Cloud City, and I also want to get into the. Jim, you mentioned Luke Skywalker. Stuart had a Luke Skywalker cameo in his treatment. We want to talk about that, but the temptation that could have been there, the potential for that. Nathan, what do you think?
At the end of the day, I liked what they did, and I was pleased and happy with what we got. I try not to be. Sometimes I feel like I'm overly picky about things. And
well, you're a Star Wars fan. Come on.
Well, yeah, but I just try to look for the positives and stuff. So I'm happy with what we got, but I do wish that there could have been a little bit more along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the lightsabers and the lightsaber fights are cool, but it's the dialogue and the relationship between the characters that's why we show up. That's why we're watching it.
Yeah, that's right.
Because this has been building for all of these years. We've watched these movies thousands of times, and then when something new is coming up, we're more interested in the relationships than anything else. So I do wish that there was kind of more along those lines than what we got, but I am happy that we got the show. I was pleased with the finale. I was pleased with the fight. I think there was a lot of good stuff in there, so I don't want to sound too picky, but I do wish there could have been a little bit more.
No, I totally get that.
Knowing what you know from talking to the original writer, were you able to pick any insight into what could potentially be in play for a second season? Now, I know Stuart Beattie he'd even really write the first season of the Kenobi show. They just took his script for the movie and adapted it, and did revise it quite a bit, I'm sure. Especially there was supposed to be a reunion with Commander Cody that was going to kind of fuel a friendship for Obi-Wan throughout this series. Cody would be the guy who knows that Kenobi is still alive and stuff like that. I was wondering if you think maybe some of Stuart's ideas like that could be incorporated into a season 2, and what has good potential.
I mean, in my opinion, his idea for what that second movie was going to be, I think a lot of that could, if there is a season 2, and I asked him, obviously he doesn't have any, he's not in the know or anything. He doesn't know for sure, but I asked him if he thought there was a possibility for a season 2, what his thoughts were on that. And he said that he can see it happening, like that very possible, that he feels very confident that as long as it's in demand, that Lucasfilm will go ahead with the second season. But I think the Qui-Gon stuff would be really interesting. And I think that is a bridge that they can build between the prequels and the original trilogy. I don't think they would have included him for 10 seconds at the end of the episode if they weren't going to continue that at some point, if they do make a second season. But I think the Qui-Gon stuff would be cool. And then from this time period, the next time we see him would be in Rebels, just for that one episode. But the Cody stuff, I liked his ideas with the Cody things.
I did.
Him having a buddy.
I did too. There was a sequence that he talked about of how Obi-Wan might meet Cody, and it was he's very discreet. He's a writer and he's got a great mind. I really would love to see this guy come back to Star Wars in some way. I thought that the way he sort of reasoned and had such good logic behind some of the character and story decisions he was making, I thought were just really, really solid. But this concept that he had for, Obi-Wan to sort of be a little clueless as he's there at the beginning of his exile, and, for the point of view of the audience, that he was kind of being stalked, being followed by a shadowy figure who, jumps out, grabs him, holds him at knife point and says, "You're dead. If you keep being obvious about who you are, you're dead. You're not, Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't exist." And it turns out to be Cody. And then, it would also allow live action Star Wars to deal with things like the inhibitor chip. And it sounds like based on your conversation with Stuart, that they were going to go there. That all the stuff from Clone Wars and Rebels with the Order 66 was going to be fair game in this live action.
Yeah. And what you just backing up a second from what you were saying at the first, when I was talking to him, it was just like talking to another Star Wars fan. I mean, he knew his stuff. He was passionate about it. He told me both of his two dogs are named Luke and Leia. One of the first movies he watched was Star Wars in '77. But it was just like talking to a fan, and you could tell this is something he was passionate about, something he wanted to make. But yeah, the Cody stuff was really interesting. Like you said, the way he first met with Cody, how he kind of pushed Obi-Wan into action, being like, you can't be this careless.
Right.
But, and then over Star Wars in general, with the animated stuff, we've been getting more and more things about the inhibitor chips. In season 6 of the Clone Wars, in that first arc, those first 4 episodes, that was all about the inhibitor chips with 5s. And then in season 7, when the Order 66 stuff happened with Rex's inhibitor chip, and then the Bad Batch has touched on it. So I feel like it's only a matter of time before it's got to be talked about in live action at some point soon.
You even speculate that maybe there's plans for the Cody character down the line in live action.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I know Tim Morrison in the mix.
He's going to be in Bad Batch season 2, correct?
Well, yeah, I think we saw a glimpse of him in the trailer, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Cody, you're talking about.
Yes, Cody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously the inhibitor chip will probably be addressed in that show. And then it could be a firm foundation to set up his appearance in live action in the Kenobi season 2. You mentioned Stuart was such a huge fan of Star Wars, and that's obvious. But did he tell you what motivated him to approach Lucasfilm with the pitch in the first place?
No, not really. That's not really something that we talked about. I just kind of asked him how he got brought onto the project, and that's when he told me about his pitch. That he wanted to make a story about just Obi-Wan and his struggles, and him being cut off from the Force, and his confrontation with Vader, and things like that, because of what he said, what we were talking about earlier, that Obi-Wan had to leave Tatooine, and those lines from the original trilogy, but he never really told me why that's something he wanted to make. But
we know that after the Disney acquisition, that there were lots of creatives coming in and pitching all over the place. Some internal, some external. It just seemed, based on the coverage of that period of time, that it was just a cavalcade of people coming in and pitching ideas. But they must have had, which was I think what you're getting at, Jim. They must have had an idea as a company that they wanted to explore this character, and that perhaps Ewan McGregor would be, interested in coming back. Therefore, we got to find somebody to write this thing. So,
well, I think it was comments that Ewan was making in the press about, sure, I'd play that character again. Why not? I think that's what got the wheels turning at Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
So you got to put it right in front of them. With a big spotlight on it.
They never asked him. They waited until he said it out there publicly, right?
Yeah.
Then they ask him.
Yeah. And so that, Stuart probably heard the same thing and was thinking to himself, oh my God, well, if Ewan McGregor is on board with this, I got some ideas. I'm going to pitch Lucasfilm. Yeah. That's probably how it went down. Yeah.
And then he said in the interview that Ewan was on board for all 3 movies, like he was ready to do it, and so was Lucasfilm.
Yeah, so the trilogy was greenlit, but one of the big differences between his original version and what we saw on the Disney Plus series is that he wanted Obi-Wan to lose the big battle at the end, and that he was pretty passionate about that. Yeah,
so I asked him what he thought about the finale with Obi-Wan slashing Vader's mask and Vader being in a vulnerable state, and what the logic behind that would be. I mean, Obi-Wan has a chance to kill the most dangerous person in the galaxy, and at this point you've already had the Obi-Wan say the line, well, my friend is truly dead, and he knows that Vader and Anakin are two separate people now. This is not the person that he knew in the past. So I asked Stuart, I was like, why would Obi-Wan just walk away from him? And he just said that in his version, Obi-Wan would have never done that. If his Obi-Wan, if given the chance, would have killed Vader just because of what it meant for the galaxy. And then he kind of briefly went over what their confrontation was like, and it was, I think, didn't he say it was on a space station?
On a space station that was being, it sounds like coming back into the atmosphere, so it was breaking up. So for the some of the critics that thought that the settings of the two battles weren't quite exotic enough, this would be pretty exotic.
Well, keep in mind he was developing a feature film.
Correct.
Not a streaming series, so budgets are probably vastly different.
Do you all remember that early concept art where it looked like Vader and Obi-Wan were crossing lightsabers and the background looked like Mustafar?
Yeah.
I think that looking at it again after knowing that, it kind of seems like it would be that crashing ship.
Huh. That may have been that may have been what they were going for. It was very, very cool. There's another thing that he talks about. I don't know if you remember, Nathan, but he talked about infusing a little bit of humor into it. And there was a exchange between Vader and Palpatine that he had written. He was pretty proud of. Do you want to describe how that would have gone, and how would you have felt if we'd have seen that?
When he told me about it, I thought it was funny. So basically, he said that Palpatine was going to play a much bigger role in his version than what he did in the show, because we only saw him in the show for 15, 20 seconds. Right. But he said that his version, Palpatine was in it from the beginning. He was urging Vader to forget about Kenobi, let all those feelings go, and told him that, Vader told Palpatine that Obi-Wan was one of the two most dangerous Jedi in the galaxy, and Palpatine said something like, "It's a pity you didn't kill him when you had the chance," and then Vader responded with, "The other one is Yoda."
Yeah.
So, and we all know what happened with Vader and Yoda, or with Palpatine and Yoda in Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. So I thought it was funny.
He didn't seal the deal any better than Vader did, I'll tell you that.
I love it.
Right.
I love it. But what would give Vader the insight to Yoda's survival? That's the whole thing. I guess we really don't need to know. I mean, Reva knows everything. So, it's probably in the Imperial newsletter or something. The thing about having Palpatine throughout the series trying to coax Vader away from Kenobi, to me, diminishes Palpatine's strength and his controlling nature over Vader. I like the way that it all played out at the end, with Kenobi addressing Vader via the hologram, and Vader kind of losing his mind about Kenobi being out there and how he's going to bring holy hell down on Kenobi. And it just takes Palpatine one comment to snap Vader out of it. And he reminds him, that's Anakin Skywalker stuff. You need to concentrate on Darth Vader stuff, is basically the subtext of what he was saying to him. And Vader just sort of sits up and he takes in the dark side, and he's on board. And I just like that. I like that Palpatine effortlessly controls and treats Vader like a string puppet via the dark side. So that's just my personal. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It reminded me, I think it's I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of the Thrawn Ascendancy books when Thrawn is really talking about Anakin and hinting to Vader that, he knows that he's Anakin, and Vader is pretty much like, no, we're done talking about things like this. I don't want you thinking or talking about Anakin Skywalker anymore. Kind of the control that Vader has over Thrawn was the same thing that you were talking about with Palpatine, how he has control over Vader. So I ultimately liked how they incorporated Palpatine in the show. I think it worked really well. And I pretty much just agree with everything that you brought up.
Yeah, I think, Jim, I think you and Stuart are on the same page. I think the execution he might have had was different, maybe, using Palpatine more. But, in some of these quotes, he doesn't use the terminology stuff, but he does say, look, Palpatine's saying, that's not Darth Vader, that's Anakin. And I think we have Stuart really to thank, I believe, for establishing this concrete split between these two characters. I think that really is probably maybe Stuart's biggest contribution to the way this thing played out. Is they didn't try to play it down the middle. They really made it, this guy is dead at the hands of this guy. Yes, it's split personality or whatever, but they were pretty definitive about that.
Oh, and then too, Palpatine didn't show up until the end of the series, but. And that was to, like you were saying, convince Anakin or convince Vader Kenobi. Forget about him. He's gone. That's what you were saying. In Stuart's, Reva told Vader that she killed Obi-Wan, and that's why Vader stopped pursuing him. It wasn't Palpatine saying forget about him. Reva actually told Vader that she killed Obi-Wan.
I see. I was going to ask you, what are, recall from your interview with Stuart, what are some of the big differences with the Reva character and the Inquisitors?
He said that there were no other Inquisitors that were planned. No Grand Inquisitor, no Fifth Brother, that it was just Reva. And he said that he just wanted to focus on a new character. And not incorporate other characters. He specifically mentioned the Grand Inquisitor because he said you can't kill the Grand Inquisitor since he's in Rebels, so he didn't even want to bring him in. And he just wanted the focus to be on Reva because there was already your overarching antagonist in Vader.
Right.
So I don't think he wanted it to get so cluttered and have so many characters in there that it takes away from the others. But from what he was saying, she was the only one.
And in his treatment, or his script, I should say, she gets killed off at the end, doesn't she?
Yes.
Yeah.
After she comes to Vader and tells Vader that she killed Obi-Wan, that sends him into a rage because he wants to be the one. And he kills her.
Wow.
And his Stuart's reasoning for that, he said that he wanted somebody for Obi-Wan to save or fight or something like that. And he also said that Reva didn't know that Vader was Anakin in his version. So that's a big difference from the show. But Obi-Wan revealed it to Reva in his version that Vader was Anakin. Because she just remembers in the Jedi Temple seeing Anakin, and she thought Anakin was there to help. And when Anakin struck her down, which he did confirm in his version that she got struck down by Anakin, she thought that it was the Jedi, that the Jedi were the evil force in the galaxy because that was Anakin.
Interesting. And this is also on the heels of Palpatine calling out the Jedi for being traitors to the Republic and staging a coup, a takeover of his office. Yeah, that all adds up pretty well. And so Reva, definitely a Stuart Beattie creation there from the beginning. And do you have any thoughts about rumors that were going around that the season of Kenobi was altered on the fly to provide survival for Reva? That even in the TV show, she was killed off originally, but last minute editing changed all that.
Yeah, I mean, I heard all of those same rumors.
Mhm.
I don't know how much of it is true. It's definitely possible, right? I mean, I think from the beginning, most of us thought if you're bringing in a character like this and she's not going to be present in Rebels, she can't be. It would be hard to keep her alive.
She knows too much.
Right. I mean, she knows that Vader is Anakin. She knows about Luke and Leia. I mean, she's the most important person in the galaxy at this point.
As a wise Jedi once said, she's too dangerous to be kept alive.
Well, yeah. And on top of it all, she's a Force user who's been schooled in both the light side and the dark side. I mean,
right.
That makes her extremely dangerous to have out on the loose. And so that's a loose end. That's a loose end. Right. And maybe will be addressed if there is a second season of Kenobi. We've had a great time talking to you, Nathan. We're running out of time here, but I just wanted to ask you if there was any singular moment in the conversation with Stuart that really stood out to you as like the most surprising or the most unpredictable kind of information he revealed. Is there anything that to you as the reporter that really stands out?
Big moment. I've got to say is probably when he said that Lucasfilm was ready for the entire trilogy. I kind of expected when I asked him about other characters being brought in, legacy characters, I kind of figured Cody might come up. I figured Palpatine might come up. But when he told me about the trilogy, I think I was on a Zoom call with him. I think that my mouth genuinely opened. I think my jaw hit the floor because I knew that was huge information to have a confirmation like that. But also the Luke Skywalker scene that he was telling me about that was in his original draft, that I thought that was really cool.
Can you share it with us? Because it's really, I think, important, and it's a really interesting what would they call that? Ring theory, bookend, rhyming, style of writing that makes Star Wars so unique.
So he told me that once Obi-Wan goes off-world, gets off Tatooine, that he gets in with a group of refugees, kind of like he did in the show, but they worship this higher power or this entity, and it turns out to be the Force. And then Obi-Wan is given like a Force vision that is very much alike the Empire cave scene with Luke, and he's sent to Mustafar in the vision. He wakes up on Mustafar, and he sees a hooded figure turned away from him, and he thinks it's Anakin, so he calls out to Anakin, and when the figure turns around, it's a 19-year-old Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, and they have a duel on Mustafar, and Luke is pretty much at the point to where he's about to beat Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan is taken out of the vision, and Stuart said that that was to signify to Obi-Wan what would happen to Luke if he forced himself onto him, if he forced the training onto him. If he grabbed him when he was 4 or 5 years old and started training him and didn't let him grow up in the setting with Owen and Beru, that it could lead to something like that. But I thought that whole idea was really cool. It reminded me a lot of the Yoda arc in Season 6 of the Clone Wars when he has his own visions. It reminded me a lot of that.
We get to meet Dark Side Yoda, which is really cool. Wow, man, this has been awesome. As Jimmy said, very informative. Thank you so much for getting this interview, bringing it to us, because it's hard to get. So, Lucasfilm's always been secretive, but now with Disney, it's even more difficult to sort of get the scoops behind these things, and you've done it beautifully. So thank you. Thanks to Stuart Beattie for being available to outlets like yours, thedirect.com. That's the website. You can check on Nathan's other articles there as a result of his interview with Stuart Beattie. Anything else you want to mention before we head out here?
All the credit goes to the Direct, thedirect.com. My two bosses, Brian Grotsky and Jack McBride, they're the ones that presented me with this opportunity. And then one of our other writers, and he actually scheduled the interview, Russ Milheim. All the credit goes to them because they're the ones that gave me this opportunity, set this up for me. But as a lifelong Star Wars fan, it was amazing to be able to talk to somebody like that and to write about it, get exclusives like that. So it was an experience. I'm very thankful for it. And I'm also very thankful for you all bringing me on the show. It's been a treat talking with you. I'll talk Star Wars anytime.
Great. Hey, well,
Awesome.
Congrats on the scoop. And if you get any more, we'll bring you back. So stay in touch.
All right,
okay,
sounds
Nathan?
like a plan.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Hey there, this is Ashley Eckstein, and this is Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force.
All right, Gina Carano made an appearance on the Adam Carolla podcast. I'm actually a somewhat regular listener of Adam Carolla's podcast. If I don't catch the podcast, I'll usually catch the YouTube. And I saw that Gina was coming on, but Jim, I missed this one. I hadn't had a chance to listen to it, and I was wondering, I know she's on there promoting her new film with the Daily Wire, but was there any Star Wars talk when she was there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so they didn't beat around the bush there.
Oh, no. She tells the full story about being canceled by Hollywood and Lucasfilm and how that kind of slammed the brakes on her career. And she talks about being removed from The Mandalorian and stuff we already know. Let's just
already covered.
So I'm looking for some new stuff here. Give or take Gina Carano. I'm looking for the news here. So the news is she talks about Rangers of the New Republic. Okay. Now, if we remember correctly, this is a show that was announced by Kathleen Kennedy at the Disney Investors Day extravaganza that happened late December 2020. Rangers of the New Republic. And most of us did jump to the conclusion that the show is going to feature Cara Dune because she becomes a Ranger of the New Republic in The Mandalorian.
And her character was very popular as well.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And like Ashley Eckstein, who I really give a lot of credit to making Ahsoka as popular as she is now, obviously the character takes a lot of credit for that, but I think it's Ashley's interaction with the fan base that's really pushed that character into the stratosphere. I think Gina Carano has done something similar with Cara Dune, and she's been really popular on the convention circuit throughout this summer. She was supposed to be in Chicago for Fan Expo, but had to cancel at the very last minute. But here she is on Adam Carolla. And as I said, talking about Rangers of the New Republic, announced in December 2020, then canceled in the wake of Gina Carano's Twitter controversy and showdown with Lucasfilm over all of that. And with Gina Carano then being called out publicly by Lucasfilm, saying she's not going to be involved in any more Star Wars, we all started asking questions about Rangers of the New Republic. There was a publication, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was The New Yorker. And they had a feature about how all of that fell apart. And they did confirm that Rangers of the New Republic was the Gina Carano vehicle and that it is not in production anymore.
Right.
Kathleen Kennedy was asked about this in another article, more coverage that happened, I think, late last year. And Kathleen Kennedy said, well, it wasn't really more than just a concept. There were no scripts. There was nothing, no solid concepts.
And they were going to allegedly fold some of those concepts into other projects.
The concepts that she said didn't exist.
A sentence later,
she said, and then that will all be placed into other Star Wars
all
films.
of that nothing.
So most likely those story ideas are going to be melded into Mandalorian season 3 somehow, or maybe the Ahsoka series. I don't know.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that it was a show that Gina Carano was supposed to helm, and she didn't. And so now Carano's talking about it. And so I think this is pretty good because we're not dealing with any sort of Kathleen Kennedy tap dance around facts, and we're not dealing from secondhand reporting by outside sources.
Right.
We're dealing with the source, Gina Carano, and she talks about this with Adam Carolla and lets you know about how far along they were in the process.
It's pretty devastating, though. Like, fighting 10 years of my life and acting 10 years and finally getting to have my own show, which they'll say there was no show, but there was 100% a show. I got the call. They said they had okayed the pilot, the first episode, and it was all going to move along. And
so there's 2 seasons on The Mandalorian, and they were going to spin it off into your own vehicle. Your character.
It was going to be Rangers of the New Republic. It was going to be me and a bunch of other people, but I think I was going to be a really big. I had a full, healthy, hearty career. And that's like something that dreams are made of in my business. So
let's kind of go through it. So they told you we're going to spin this off, and your character is going to be one of the main characters in the spin-off.
Yes, I got that phone call. I got the phone call that they'd already okayed the first episode, and my character. She got so much attention, and it was because I was interacting with the fans, I believe. And I also think she was just a cool character. She was a soldier, and we didn't try to lean into anything romantic or anything. She was just, a soldier that was a badass. And finally, we've got a woman that looks like this on, it representing a soldier, and it just fit. So people really enjoyed her.
Mm. Yeah, and as she's talking about that, I'm remembering that, of course, that first meeting between her and Mando in that restaurant or bar or whatever. Yeah. I don't know if you can call it a bar. Did they serve soup at a bar? I just remember Baby Yoda was eating the soup. But she had such a great. It was a really cool character on the show. I think she's going to be missed. Now she talks about the pilot, that they had okayed the pilot. Yeah. And I guess I assume that these streaming networks operate in a similar way. I guess they call it a pilot. But nothing had been shot, obviously. They had just okayed the fact that they were going to film a pilot. That's the way I interpret
They didn't
that.
say pilot. She said the first episode was already greenlit.
Right, which is she says pilot, and then she calls it the first episode.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, I mean, would it be greenlit without a script? I guess, maybe there was an outline or something, and that got the green light.
Now, how do we know there wasn't a script for the first
I
episode?
don't know. Well, because Kathleen Kennedy said there wasn't.
Again, how do we know there wasn't a script?
Around the fact.
Yeah. But no, she was excited. But she makes a big deal. So here's my theory. She makes a big deal of the fact that the first episode was greenlit. She called it a pilot, then she said the first episode. Is it possible that this might have been a backdoor pilot that they were going to film? Maybe it was an episode of The Mandalorian that was actually the first episode of Rangers of the New Republic. Because why would she say that was greenlit and not a whole first season?
I just think she said that it was like approved, and ready to go into production.
The first episode was approved.
Episode's ready. Yeah. I mean, she was just illustrating how far along in the process it had been.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a series. So, the facts are what we already know, and we know it was supposed to be a series. So,
I always thought that
a logo.
Right. I always thought that it was going to be kicked off as an episode of Mandalorian where, he might pop in, the backdoor pilot is what they call it. Just all of a sudden.
Right. Well, there's a lot of crossover.
TV show. Yeah.
We've seen. There's going to be crossover in the Ahsoka show. There was crossover in the Boba Fett show. There's going to be more crossover like that. But just interesting to get information about the show from Gina Carano herself. Show's never going to happen. Gina Carano was never going to work in Star Wars again. There are occasional rumors that pop up, Will Gina appear in Mandalorian season 4? It's like, geez, we haven't even seen season 3 yet. But she's not going to be in season 3.
I don't think so.
She's done. She's done. It's worth watching the interview though, because she does offer a little bit more insight into things about the Twitter controversy she was involved in, and how Lucasfilm PR tried to manage it and control it and all of that stuff. And it provides a lot of info. And control her. Yeah. It provides a lot. And how that, none of her Mandalorian co-stars stepped up for her publicly. But she does infer that privately she was receiving some support, but because Lucasfilm operates by using fear tactics, by shutting her down, it makes other actors afraid.
Of course,
put themselves in a line of fire. That's only natural, and that's all from Gina's perspective, of course. But
right.
You know what happened to her, and you know how it happened, and to get any more information about it sort of offers a little more clarity on some unfortunate situations. Let's just say that.
I think one thing is clear. I think that the show was a lot further along conceptually than what Kathleen Kennedy had, most recently claimed it to be.
Yeah, and it was a Jon Favreau thing, and he works pretty fast from what I can gather.
That's why they call him Fast Favreau.
Fast Fabs. So, he gets the job done.
Yes, he does.
Doesn't take up much of your time doing it. So that's Gina Carano on the Adam Carolla Show. We got Marcia Lucas also in the news.
This is huge. This is a big deal, man. This is a real big deal.
The guys who did the show, The Toys That Made Us, the same production company is now doing a series of shows. It's a 6-episode series called Icons Unearthed, and it's all focused on the making of the original Star Wars. And I think the prequels will also be covered in this, the George Lucas era of Star Wars.
These guys are great filmmakers. If you haven't seen Toys That Made Us or the movies that made us or the holiday movies that made us, those are all available on Netflix. Check them out. The Nacelle Company. They're toy collectors. They're just pop culture archaeologists. I mean, they're fantastic.
So the big deal about this show is the fact that they got Marcia Lucas to sit down on camera and answer questions about Star Wars. I mean, Marcia has been very quiet about Star Wars, and George Lucas has done, in the as the proud tradition of Lucasfilm controlling people and everything. I mean, George Lucas went out of his way to bury her and diminish any sort of contributions she made to Star Wars, and he acted that way as a spurned former husband,
Sure,
he got
burned.
Ran
deep.
Well, Marcia left him. Left him,
right.
And she left him high and dry with the 2-year-old at home, and it's really unsavory the way that all went down too. So I can sympathize with George Lucas and the way he wants to maintain the history of Star Wars and remove his ex-wife from that history. I mean, he's bitter, and he has all the right in the world to be bitter.
Hard to do when she's the editor of the films. I mean, that's
one of the editors.
One of the editors.
Yeah, there were actually 4 editors on Star Wars. You had Paul Hirsch, you had Richard Chew, you had Marcia Lucas, and you had George Lucas too. George doesn't take credit for being an editor, but he's an editor naturally. That's what he does.
Yeah.
More so as far as filmmaking goes, George Lucas probably considers himself an editor more than a director.
That's his favorite part. It's his favorite part of filmmaking. But we've heard Marcia Lucas referenced in things like the unauthorized history of Star Wars, for example, and there's quotes in there from people that know George quite well and know the story, the history of the making of the film. And yes, there were other editors, but she was a major figure in crafting that movie.
Well,
No
obviously, I mean, she's a filmmaker herself. She has very creative mind, and she was George Lucas's confidant during this period of time. You know, he really. I mean, they had a strong and healthy relationship.
It was all pillow talk, Jimmy Mac. It was all pillow talk.
Is that how you get through to George Lucas? Wow. Is that how Rick McCallum did it? But no, you know, Marcia was actually collaborating with George and stuff, and George would find himself at dead ends and confusing moments during the script writing and stuff. And one of those confusing moments was in the end of the film during the Battle of Yavin. Obi-Wan Kenobi was largely just standing around. And he was, you know, just standing around in the Yavin war room there with Leia and 3PO and Dodonna and all those guys. He was there originally. This was in the fourth draft, the shooting script. What actually was used, though, was a revised fourth draft in which George corrected what he felt was a mistake, having Obi-Wan just stand around and killed him off on the Death Star. How did he get there, though, you know? Marcia explains exactly what went down at that time and her role in killing Obi-Wan Kenobi. So here's a clip from the show.
You all thought it was Darth Vader.
I said, but I really have this idea that I think could work because of the Force. May the Force be with you.
The Force was already with Marcia. Like a true Jedi, she understood its potential.
I said, what if Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan Kenobi? And Obi-Wan Kenobi disintegrates when they're escaping. And George said, I like that idea.
What Marcia wanted to unlock was more than just a good death scene.
It would work because when Luke is listening to Obi-Wan when he's in the trench run, he hears Obi-Wan tell him,
use the Force, Luke.
And in the script, Obi-Wan was in the Rebel war room talking to Luke. But I said he can still say all that stuff he needs to say to Luke.
Let go, Luke.
And George said, I like that idea. And so I sort of pride myself on killing Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I kind of like this lady. I haven't seen this episode. I can't wait. I didn't realize that I had access to Vice, this channel that this is on. So if you are a Hulu Plus subscriber, you can, it looks like it's available. So I'm going to check this out for sure.
It's fun. You know, I'm watching it real closely because, you know, guys like you and me, we really know the history of the making of Star Wars. Right. And so I'm really trying to keep my ears open for some unique stories, interesting things that we may have never heard before. Anthony Daniels talks about Gary Kurtz butting heads with Gil Taylor, the director of cinematography. And there's all kind of great interviews throughout this thing. It's all rapid fire editing, as you can hear in that clip. Is you know, if you've seen the movies that made us, the toys that made us, things like that, you'll get the similar vibe in the production style. But you know, Billy D. Williams, Rick Baker, John Dykstra, Howard Kazajian, Ian McDiarmid, you know, a lot of voices you don't hear too often talking about Star Wars in retrospect. John Dykstra especially, you know.
Yeah.
He had a falling out with George Lucas and hasn't really been featured too much in
I'm going to guess that George is not interviewed in this particular documentary. That's why you're getting all of these amazing scoops with these other figures that have not, you know, been a part of the official narrative for such a long time.
Retired. So and if you paid attention to the voice of the narrator in that clip we just played, that is Michael Pennington, who played Moff Jerjerrod in Return of the Jedi.
Well, I thought that voice sounded familiar. I was like, oh, is it Ian McDiarmid? No, it's not Ian McDiarmid. Who is it? So Moff Jerjerrod. Wow,
Jerjerrod.
Cool. Yeah. Well, at least that's the way I always pronounced it.
Jerjerrod is always, but I mean, whatever. You're probably right. I'm probably right. We're both right.
Yes, George. It's going to be pronounced different ways, different parts of the galaxy.
So there's going to be 5 more episodes coming up over the next few weeks, and Marcia Lucas will probably be featured in all of them. So I'll be looking for little tidbits here and there. And from what I gather from seeing some of the promo material for this, she does address the fact that she was washed away from Star Wars history by George. So it'd be interesting to hear her take. And yeah, right from the horse's mouth. This is not the first on-camera interview Marcia's ever done, though. A few years ago, there was a big ILM anniversary get-together at the old warehouse and everything, and somebody shot a bunch of videos there, and she got the. Wow. Well, it wasn't run by George. It was run by like ILM alumni.
Oh.
And so it wasn't like a sanctioned Lucasfilm event. This was like a high school reunion kind of for the ILM guys. And Marcia was there, and you can see these videos on YouTube if you do a search for them. And they talk to Marcia about things, but it's more technical in nature, as opposed to storytelling or relationships with the director. You know? But this is like the first mainstream kind of a production about Star Wars that I've ever seen Marcia Lucas get interviewed in. So, really, really good stuff. And we'll be providing you with highlights as the weeks go on.
All right, well, let's do it. We got him waiting in the cantina, our good buddy, Mr. Kyle Newman.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master?
For a drink. Sorry about the mess. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
All right, Kyle, welcome back. Big day.
Big day indeed.
Congratulations on the new movie. It's now available for everyone to see. You've been telling us a lot about this over the years. It seems like it's taken a while, but it's finally here. It's got to be a great moment.
It's a great feeling when you work on something. This one's about 22, 23 months, intensely. It's always a special time when you finally get to unleash it onto the world and see how people react to it, and everyone can celebrate. The cast and crew had a premiere Tuesday night. World premiere in Los Angeles, red carpet thing. It was fantastic. It was at the Chinese theater. Just felt very supported by the studio. It's Lionsgate, it's BuzzFeed Studios, and it's Amazon Prime. So we are pumped.
Fantastic.
Well, it's a lot of fun. It's so much fun. Congratulations, Kyle. I watched it today and really enjoyed it. I like the characters a lot. And some of them I could see getting spun off into their own thing. It's like, I want to see more of these guys. So it's just a fun film, and it has all of those fun factors that I think have become sort of your trademark. But the thing I really had a lot of fun with was seeing you make your cameo appearance as the coach of the Kansas City Kong. And, I was just like, what is it? And then sure enough, there you were. And I actually pulled some audio highlights. I hope you don't mind if I
go for it.
Blast them at you. This is Kyle Newman's big scene as the coach of the opposing team.
Come on, Kong. Lose this and we go back to Kansas City. Nobody wants to go there. Keep those health bars up. Go. Eyes on the prize, guys.
No mercy for the weak, Diane.
Easy, Cobra Kai.
Back off, pencil dick.
Guy. Nice to keep it topical. That's fantastic. So you're a coach.
I'm a coach of a team near the end of Act 2, and it's a sports film. It's esports, but we treat it like it's a sports film. Hopefully, it's in the lineage of A League of Their Own and Cool Runnings, and sports films were instrumental. Rocky, Escape to Victory with Beckenbauer, Pele, and the like, Michael Caine. I watched lots of different sports films, but this is a very unconventional one because it's video games, and
esports.
Now, I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of schools giving out esports scholarships, so it's a legitimate thing. And the older you get, the more unfounded this seems, but it's absolutely true. We put a crawl at the beginning. It opens with a all like it's more Blade Runner than Star Wars. And Brian Burke's a friend who produced The Force Awakens and lots of other great movies. Watched it, and he's like, just stick a crawl up there. And I was like, really? And and I listened to it. I tried it. I was adverse to it. I was like, I don't know if I want to do a crawl. Oh God! But you know what? It works. It lets people know right off the bat this is real. This is legit. Kids are doing this. You don't have to question, figure out is this real or not. If you're not sure, it disarms you. You go right into it and just get into the story, and it works. And so that was one of the several little Star Warsy type things. There's a Padawan's reference in there too.
Yes, we have audio. Hit it, Swank.
Here we go.
Take a deep breath. You're all taking this team for granted. We need to start from the beginning, young Jedi. Sorry, technically we'd be called Padawans. Padawans it is.
And so I was so happy. I was like, yeah, Kyle comes through with the Star Wars reference, of course. But I don't know if that was you or if it was in the script, but it's still a project you're associated with. But there was something else that happened.
I put it all in there. I did a lot of writing on this film.
Can I ask if you put this one in? Because I might be tripping, but I think there's a Kitster reference in your film.
Yep.
There is. Now, have I revealed too much? I'm sorry. I was just so excited when I discovered this. I couldn't believe it. All right. Well, all right. So go ahead.
We got it. All right. Here we go.
Play the clip. Yep.
Can't believe they made a movie about people who play video games.
This movie's so wizard.
She says the movie is so. Now listen, it makes sense within the context because they're watching Fred Savage in The Wizard.
Yeah.
They're watching it for inspiration. So she says this movie is so wizard, but that's a Kitster reference. That is not a Fred Savage reference.
That's Kitster. I wrote that one in there too. There's also, I'm a big Arsenal soccer fanatic, and there's a line at the end of the first battle in the championships where he says the character's charging through the midfield and it's up for grabs now, and it's this famous commentary when Arsenal beat dirty Liverpool to the title. It's the most dramatic end to a Premier League, to a pre-Premier League season, to an English league season, and I put that commentary in there as a reference too for Arsenal. I put lots of little Easter eggs I wrote into this movie.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of good acting in it. I really enjoyed the lead. I guess she was in some Disney XD shows. I forget her name.
Paris Burrell. She was also in the Tall.
She's wonderful.
She was on a Netflix show, Disney show. She was in Hubie Halloween with Adam Sandler recently.
I just remember she was in Lab Rats, and so I know I've seen her because Lab Rats always used to air right before. I think it was Star Wars Rebels. So my DVR would always pick up the last 5 minutes of Lab Rats. So that's where I think I've seen her before. Also, you got Ruby Rose in the film, and she's well known as Batwoman Season 1. You have Chris Farley's brother, Kevin, is in it. I was surprised to see Kevin.
That was awesome.
And,
He's great.
And he plays kind of douchey character, but but I mean that's no knock on Kevin. I love Kevin.
Dean Davis, yeah, he's like it's great to work with him. He's great comic instincts, timing. He's great with physical comedy, but this is a character which I think is important because these characters it's not about taking on the old guard. This is like taking on your peers. It's it's all college kids, so not like displacing anybody. In that sense, but there is this generational commentary on how people want to identify and what esports is, and that these girls have actual scholarships, everything, and he thinks he's going to get canceled. It's a good commentary on how an older generation are actually afraid of the younger generation, the power they have over them. There's a lot of progressive and important stuff in this movie in terms of the messaging, which is gaming should be and is for everyone. And it shouldn't alienate people. It's meant to be inclusive. There's a lot of people. The movie hasn't even come out yet. It comes out today. But all week there's been negative reviews on IMDb and the Rotten Tomatoes. Not reviewers, but like fans that are threatened by the idea that girls can play video games. So they're just stacking it with negative reviews, not having even seen the film. It's just 1 star, 1 star, 1 star. Which is why we made this movie, because it's important that people of all genders, sexual preference, age, it doesn't matter. Like, if you love video games, you're hiding behind an avatar anyway. You can look like whatever you want. Everyone should play. There should be no barrier of entry. You shouldn't have to have, testicles in order to play a game. It's ridiculous. Like, this movie, gaming's for everyone. It's such a universal, global, unifying thing. So it's strange that people are so threatened by it and want to gatekeep. And already it's bizarre that the movie hasn't come out and it's just people are trying to attack.
Well, that tells you something. I mean, when people make up their minds before they even see it, that tells you really everything that you need to know. But the fact is that, the movie's going to stand up on its own and people are going to watch it and, hopefully have the same. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. I know Jimmy Mack, he was able to see it and came out of it really having enjoyed himself. So
FJ I thought it was a lot of fun.
We had FJ.
You got
there.
FJ out in the public?
Wow.
FJ left his house?
Amazing.
And guess who else is in the movie? Seth Green is in the film. And
Seth is. Yeah, Seth is in it. You have to pay attention. But he's definitely in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just great when you can make something and a subject matter you love. Obviously, with fanboys, I was I'm a Star Wars fanatic. That was a joy. But to get a chance to play in the world of gaming, another joy, because I'm not like an avid esports person. I appreciate it and I know all about it. It's fascinating. But I grew up with all types of other games, and it's been part of who I am, starting with my brother ColecoVision and Atari and back to Zork and Pong.
ColecoVision, Donkey Kong Jr. and Ladybug and
Donkey Kong Jr. I had Nintendo. We had
Burger Chef.
In college, we did Dreamcast and Genesis and we had.
You can almost define. You can define eras of your life by what console you were playing. My days on the ColecoVision were very different from my days on the the original NES versus the Super Nintendo and what was Sega's first one, with Sonic the Hedgehog,
Genesis,
the Genesis, But I look back on those consoles and I can remember exactly what I was, what phase of my life I was in, who my friends were, all that stuff. They're great little markers.
On the N64, on regular Nintendo, playing original Legend of Zelda. The first time I saw that gold cartridge at my cousin's house in Livingston, New Jersey, I was like, what is this? Here I am. I borrow my son's Switch and I'll play Breath of the Wild. I'm finally trying to find some time to keep up on my Zelda, but I played Ocarina of Time. I'm a Zelda fanatic. Obviously, there's D&D has roots in all these games. Did you have any? All ties together.
Did you have any real esport experts there on the set that you were using as consultants? And did they ever have to interrupt you and be like, "Yeah, this isn't quite so accurate here. You need this, you need that"?
I would have to do a lot of research myself. My visual effects supervisor, he was a gamer himself. He's the one who introduced me to the game that we then used and appropriated into our game to make it our Knights of the Elder Orb, because everything you see in the movie is a green screen. These characters are not, the actors are not sitting there playing this actual game. Every single thing put in later. I had to then have teams of people, 5 and 5, play each other and actually have the match play out in accordance with a script that I would then write in post and say, this character has to kill this character with this weapon. This character is going to kill this character. It has to show up on screen that these 2 characters are dead. This team has 3 alive. This team has 2 alive. Then this character is going to kill this guy. And they would go play it out, send me the footage. I would cut it in. It was movies within a movie.
4-dimensional chess you're playing here.
It's a post nightmare, this movie. It was, I'm talking, we made it in 25 days, which is crazy because we're doing 50 setups a day. Movies average way less than half that. We then had almost 1,200 VFX, 4 minutes of animation. We made this thing for around $4 million. which when you watch it, you will not believe. I don't know how we pulled it off, and I made it.
I got to ask, does your experience as being like a campaign master for Dungeons and Dragons, did that help you kind of plot out, what was happening in the actual game action? Because it seems like you said you were writing game moments and game battles.
When you have a script, I did a lot of work on the script, reworked it entirely, catered it to the actors I was casting, and made it something its own. And we started with a good spot though, but I did many drafts on the script, and a lot of people were collaborating, and you then have to use that as a foundation, but as a starting point. It's not your end product. And then you get on set and you have to figure out, okay, I can't really deal with respawns, I can't really deal with this. I have to streamline the game, I have to simplify the visual vernacular of the game, because the average person they might know basketball, football, baseball. They don't know esports, 5-person PV, like team play. They don't know MOBA. They might know these words, but they're not going to know this game, because this game's not even out yet. It comes out in 2 weeks. So
I'm sorry, it's a real game.
It is now. It is now, because they're so excited about the movie that they took the assets from an old game that was developed by the people who did Fortnite and abandoned. Another company picked up the reins and then started redeveloping this into a game. So we were doing this while they were in like a beta.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool. Okay, I thought it was like a generic game that you guys.
No. They renamed their game now. It's called Elder Orb, and our game, a fictional game, Elder Orb. So they borrowed the name of our game in their forthcoming game because they liked it so much, and things were reskinned and things were embellished. And I changed the rules and simplified to suit the movie. Mm-hmm. So there is its own game using a lot of. And then I direct. There's animation in it, and we use the game engine to direct. There's one of my favorite scenes is in there with the Chocobo, the chicken scene with the set to ballroom bits. It was going to be Sticks, Come Sail Away, but those guys are Sticks rhymes with Ix. Wanted too much money, and it's like, sorry guys, trying to make you cool again. I
think they gave it to South Park. I mean, Cartman was singing "Come Sail Away." That was his earworm in that one episode.
Movie, and everybody, it's independent, and everybody's, they were still going to make a lot of money, but it's hard when you try to negotiate with these people. They're out of touch.
Oh, music is music is one of the most difficult things.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate, but Ballroom Blitz rocks. It's one of my favorite scenes, and I love the music in this movie because I spent a lot of time working with music supervisor, but I had a very specific, this is a music moment, this is the exact vibe, this is the song I want. And if we can't afford it, we go and we brainstorm and how do we find something comparable. What's awesome is Sin has 2 songs in the movie.
Fantastic.
She does.
Kyle's better half.
One where she's running across the campus at the beginning, the opening sequence, and another one later in the film, which is coming. It's off of her forthcoming debut album called "Growing Up," and that one is at a key moment near the end of Act 2 where V and Parker have a scene in the driveway in the snow after they watch Wizard, and V goes home and plays Battletoads on her Game Boy, and then Owen comes to see her at the game store, and it's this emotional song that covers 3 scenes, and that's going to be it's a wonderful song. It's on her album, so we were lucky to put that in the film, and it is a big week for me because I have this movie coming out today, but also today I directed a video for Sin. It's the first off of her first album, and it's
I gotta ask though, how did that go? Directing your significant other, and this is a big project for her. It's her music, it's her album, it's her vision, and then you show up and direct the video.
It was great. We collaborated on the story, and she was part of. She'd come to pre-production stuff. She did a location scout, so she was very hands-on, and I made I really like to plan things before, so I took a lot of still pictures and cut it together to the song so we could just find out how the story was working kinetically, and we knew exactly we have 7.3 seconds to do this gag here and this gag here, and we mapped it all out, and so she was privy to the process, and like I said, it was her initial concept, and then she was also vested in it during the editing process. I would show her cuts and talk about things. So I love the feedback. I love the collaboration. I I've been fortunate whenever I do music videos to know and work close with the artist. I got to do it with Taylor Swift and doing Taylor's tour, and it was like a one-on-one situation where we'd really just, she'd show me footage and we'd pick her brain and we created it. And same thing when I did a video with Lana Del Rey, and it was like that with Sin, where we could just sit and talk about the idea and brainstorm, and you don't have to deal with like managers and all these other people. You're just in a very pure creative process. And that felt more personal for her. And it came out so great. And it also guest stars Katy Perry, who discovered Sin, which is great. So that's an extra funny. There's some
star power there for you.
And Sin's got some songs on her album with some cool Star Wars references too. So.
Oh, hey. That we'll have to feature in Star Wars and pop culture.
Well, hey, since you mentioned Star Wars, Kyle, while we have you here, far be it from us to make you talk about Star Wars, but we haven't really had a chance to talk to you since the finale of Kenobi. And earlier in the program, we spoke with a writer for the direct.com, direct.com. And, he interviewed the original screenwriter for the Obi-Wan Kenobi film when it was meant to be a trilogy.
Was that Stuart Beattie?
Stuart Beattie, exactly. And so we talked to him, for a while about, his interview with Stuart and how different, it was intended to be. And when it was, a film. Some examples are things like the setting for the duels were going to be far more elaborate than what we ended up with. And Mac was quick to point out, well, Stuart was writing for a feature. He wasn't writing for a series at the time. I guess the question I have for you, do you feel that the story that played out, do you feel that it suffered or benefited from the medium? And not thinking so much about budget, but I'm thinking about the length of time, the amount of time that they had to tell this story.
I think I wouldn't say it's the medium itself that offered the limitations. I think it's how you approach the medium that can be the blinders. It's a psychological thing. There's no reason this story could have. It could be wonderful whether it's a show or a film. You can decompress a little bit. You can get into things a little more psychologically. Maybe you have the leeway to cut to other characters more dramatically. It's not that much. The format is not that much different than I think what Stuart had planned, but it is a little bit decompressed. So it just comes down to creative choices. You watch a lot of shows on TV, like if you've seen Stranger Things before, it's absolutely impeccably made. It's huge. Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, brilliant. New planets and exotic environments. It's masterfully done. I'm a big fan of that show. There were parts of the show that felt small or too small. I think there's definitely a difference between the very first battle set at the Pennsylvania rock quarry versus one set on the planet with the amazing moon and these exotic rock sculptures. They just have two different. It just felt like two different scales. One felt mundane and one felt otherworldly and Star Wars.
Yeah.
Obviously the street beforehand where Vader's snapping people's necks and stuff, that, had a certain believability and grandeur to it. And the battle itself felt small and it was just riddled with logic issues, You're like, wait, there's one tunnel, but then when they passed this character and this character went back to do what? And why didn't Vader just jump it? Like, I've seen him jump down steps in a movie, and there's just some things where you're like, the blocking was questionable. It's like he's just shot rocks 20 feet, and now he can't walk 20 feet around the rocks. I don't, so it was like arbitrary. Yeah. I think that's not down to television versus film. That's just down to how are you blocking things? Like if young Princess Leia isn't believably running, start the guys back a little further. Don't have a Faline get tangled in a twig and be like, oh, just block it better. I don't understand. Or don't put it in if it's not working. There's something called editing. You just cut it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just trash the series because I actually enjoyed it. But we're on the Star Wars podcast, and you guys know I keep it real. I'm going to talk to you about what it could have been better. You could have sat there for a weekend and cut that show and made it a little tighter. I'm not saying make the 2-hour version like I know fans are doing. I wouldn't do that.
I was going to ask, have you seen the 2.5-hour fan edit that has gone absolutely mainstream? A filmmaker named Kai Patterson, who is working as a visual effects artist on indie films. He released his cut of the Kenobi for free on his website, and his edit focuses more on Obi-Wan and presents the whole thing as a 2.5-hour movie. So have you seen it?
I've not seen it. I'm interested to see it. It's problematic when people are recutting other people's work. But he does encourage people to go, if you have a D plus subscription, and watch the original stuff, and encourage people to watch the original content. I think that's important. It's easy in hindsight to say, oh, I would just do this different, or I would just do this better. It's we do have the lens of the hindsight.
What they get right for you as a fan? What did the series get right?
He's a class act. He's wonderful. I mean, some of the very obvious expositional lines should have been. There were more subtext, and I think a lot of things were overstated and didn't need to be said, or were very hammy. But every time he needs to deliver, he was amazing. Hayden Christensen, what an amazing dude. I love that guy, and I'm glad he's back in Star Wars. And it was a triumphant return, being a celebration, watching them get the love and the accolades. Hayden was like the most well-received person down there. It's good to see the prequels loving him. I'm glad he's back on that stage. Him as Darth Vader, absolutely fantastic. Joel Edgerton, another amazing dude. He's great as Uncle Owen, adds texture and grounds the character. Really good job. There were some wonderful performances in the show. I just think the scripts felt a little underbaked. I was like, just probably needed a little more work. And I mean, me personally, I would never shoot Darth Vader in a close-up shaky cam at head height. You have to give him presence and power and control. He's like the Terminator. He controls a frame. Like, he works at his pace. Like, him storming into the room on that underwater base and like all shaky cam, and like it's just not how you present Darth Vader. It's just not. It's not in George's visual language, and I don't care who you are. You got to respect the visual language of Star Wars. Who Darth Vader is the symbiotic relationship with how he was photographed, how he's presented, and how George presented him tells us a lot about what he is as a character, how his mind works, how he would handle somebody like Reva in a situation like that. And it actually, when you don't know how to photograph something correctly, it betrays the emotion of the scene, it betrays the character, it betrays certain truths. Extreme close-ups are not really a Star Wars thing, especially shaky extreme close-ups just felt a little off to me. I mean, I'm just riffing on stuff that... But I think there was some really great VFX, and there was some where I was like, what's that? Like, the Star Destroyer banks, right? And there's a moon here and a big source of light, but the actual shadow across the ship never changes, and it should have been like moving across it, And it's just like, who's watching this? There's things like that I'm mystified by, because they've been in development on this show for a long, long time. But I'm glad they made it. I'm glad it exists. Qui-Gon Jinn in this episode, thank God. Like they thank God though that people are like, you know what? We have Hayden Christensen. We have Darth Vader. Let's use him.
Yeah.
They did not shit the bed like certain movies, or are afraid to embrace these characters. Qui-Gon Jinn, legend. Like, I'm glad. Like, this is great, So, yeah, they had the bravery to do certain things that had to be done and visit characters that should have been visited. I enjoyed it. But like anything, I'm like, we watched Clone Wars, we watched Rebels, we talk about what we would do differently or what we like. I can only approach it from the way my mind works, and when I see something that makes sense or doesn't ring true or feels inefficient, and I was like, why wasn't this edited out? Or why wasn't this given more time? Or why wasn't this given the room to breathe? Like, that whole sequence at the end when Anakin and Obi-Wan have their battle, and it's all close-ups, and then Anakin says, that he killed Anakin Skywalker. It had lived in close-ups for like a minute before you get to that close-up where he says that, and suddenly, because you haven't varied your shots or your focal lengths, you get to that shot, and you've already used the power of the close-up. It's been wasted for a whole minute before you get to the power of the close-up where he says, I killed Anakin Skywalker. It's like having restraint in your framing and then getting to it. That's where George is a master. That's where some of these guys are absolute masters, and you get why they do it. It's not just like get the coverage, and maybe TV, their schedule's fast and they have to just get through it and you survive. And a lot of movies, you don't get every shot you want. You get through it, you survive. But like overhead drone shots of a lightsaber battle, that was great. It's a beautiful shot once the ground starts splitting open. Remember, he rips the ground apart, Anakin, and tears through the earth. Fantastic. That's motivated the overhead shot. But why are we doing overhead shots of a light? It just was like, huh? It didn't make it more dynamic, and it didn't make it more emotional, and it didn't make it more intense. And if it's not checking those boxes, why are you doing it?
Wow.
This is like the way my mind works. Like, it has to be motivated if you're doing something.
Well, no, I appreciate you bringing that technical insight to this conversation because, there are times when I'd be watching it and, yes, impact. That's the word, impact. It does get stripped because of those close-ups. And it's something I would have never even thought of, I'm so wrapped up in the story and the characters and all that.
Yeah. And I want to just
the two examples you brought up really do make me think a lot about how all of that goes down. Because
though I felt I was enraptured by it. I was emotionally connected to it. I love it. And then there's moments where you're like, the pop and you're like, oh, okay, maybe that's why I don't fully connect with it. It's just things like that. But for the most part, it's hard to make movies. It's hard to make TV shows. It's the hardest thing in the world to make Star Wars because you're dealing with decades of legacy and expectation. So it's an enviable job, but it's also unenviable because people are critical, and here I am being critical of it. So it's a hard thing. But if you're going to take the job and you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to do it, you just hope that everyone that's doing it does their research. They go back and they read those old camera logs, and you find out what type of filters George was using when he shot on Tatooine. It gives it a certain look. What Pro-Mist filter and what type of lenses he's using, and it's all the information's there. It's the most well documented movie ever made. Yeah,
right. The making of
Kyle, is there something you want to see in the second season? Should they produce one?
They should absolutely produce one. I don't want to see Princess Leia. She was fine. I liked her. Her performance was solid, but I don't think they can revisit it. It can't be like a recurring, we're back for another adventure, because it's unjustified. People are trying to come up with all their retconny defense stuff saying, well, no, when Luke goes and rescues her, she goes, Ben Kenobi's here, You're like, okay, yeah, but when she does do a holo recording, she doesn't say, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars, and we went on a crazy 6-episode buddy comedy adventure across the galaxy, and you rescued me twice. And also when Obi-Wan dies, met with zero reflection, she just gives Luke a blanket. She's the one who knew him more. Luke knew him 24 hours, and Luke's like, oh, God, I'm so sad. And she's like, here's a blanket, Well,
and she just lost, everyone she's ever known on her home world.
Yeah, so maybe that's her will to just keep moving on. Other things that didn't totally make sense, like everyone's like, oh, that's Darth Vader's moon. Random street people, societal plebes know that is Darth Vader's moon, and everyone knows about Darth Vader. Everyone knows about Inquisitors. They seem commonplace walking on the streets of these different varied planets. But you get to this thing, and Obi-Wan doesn't know that. Obi-Wan does not know that. Obi-Wan watches a recording of someone. Oh my God! Stop. Obi-Wan watches a recording of Darth Vader being instructed to murder Padawans, and he's called Darth Vader, and then he acts like he doesn't know that he's around. I'm sorry.
Are you getting all kinds of
up on you?
messages or something?
No, it's my son trying to call me.
Well, hey, listen, that's okay. We got a new music video from Sin coming out today. House with a View on Rich Bitch Avenue. We have, of course, One Up, available for streaming on Amazon. Amazon Video is the place you want to go to see it, right? Is that the only place?
It's Amazon Prime, and obviously internationally distributed all different ways, but Prime is the main source for finding it right now.
Perfect. So we know a lot of our listeners are hitting Amazon Prime all the time. So take some time to check out One Up. Kyle, you're killing it, man. I mean, you're just killing it. I can't wait to see what's coming next from you. Do you want to give us any hints or teases about the future?
Well, I've got these two projects. Like I said, I'm very proud of. They kind of consumed a lot of my, especially 2022 and 2021. I've got some new book stuff in the works, cooking up some stuff. 2 new books are going to be announced soon, which is great. Always more film projects, and I'm just, thankful. Anytime you get to work and do something you love, it's a dream. So getting to make a movie, getting to make a video, collaborate with someone you love is just the best. And I'm very thankful, feel very fulfilled by getting the opportunity to create stuff like this. I know it's a special, opportunity, and I just try to seize it every time. So I'm open to see what comes next. Lots of things I'm developing though, lots of different genres and formats, and you guys will probably be the first to know when something's ready to talk about. But there's a lot of things that are exciting and close to happening.
Right. Well, good. Well, I know you're working on a Star Wars thing, not necessarily directly for Lucasfilm, but you are working on a Star Wars project. Is there anything you can say about that?
It's deep in the editorial process. It's helping produce with Adam F. Goldberg a documentary on the Star Wars Holiday Special, which is it's not something that's just bashing the Holiday Special, because you have to understand the context, the era, and the format was commonplace. The vaudeville and having these type of shows every you turned on television. It wasn't. If you don't understand that, you have no comprehension for why Star Wars would have embraced it. But once you understand that, and you realize, there are Bob Hope specials and Richard Pryor, the Osmonds, everyone's doing these things. Yeah. And you're getting Art Carney and Bea Arthur, and you have these variety shows with all these different types of personalities. Then you're like, oh, okay, of course, this was the way to keep it alive in an immediate format, and he needed to do that to give the franchise life between the 2 films and give it the platform to be marketed. And it takes a very insightful and nuanced look at that, looking back at other things in the era. And there's really wonderful behind-the-scenes interviews with the people who wrote the show and directed the show, and some of the dramas that came up and who might have been in the show, from Raquel Welch to Robin Williams, and what it could have looked like. And it's still in post, and been thankful to just be a part of it and help them make this thing. It's pretty cool, and so that's in the works, and another Dungeons and Dragons thing is in the works, content format TBD, but that's gonna be cool.
So, you're staying busy, man. You're staying busy, and that's good. All right. Well, you owe your son a phone call or a FaceTime or whatever it is.
Sorry for those interruptions.
No, it's okay.
For having me on, and thanks for letting me spread the gospel of One Up. I honestly think if you liked Fanboys, it's got all the same heart. It's got all the same spirit. It's loaded with pop culture references, and it's definitely an homage to a thing that many people love, and the different iterations of it throughout history. It's definitely like a time capsule look back. There's lots of fun references. There's something for everybody, and I love all generations of gaming, so I wanted to imbue it with that. And I'm super proud of it and the challenges that we were faced making it and how it
in the midst of COVID and everything going on.
Oh, it was wild, and it's something I'm just very, very proud of. It's the best thing I've made.
Wow. Well, it is a lot of fun. And it does have all those vibes you're talking about. So congratulations. Give our love to Cynthia. Of course, her music's hitting now. And just so many great things happen.
Look up House with a View. House with a View by Sid. Name of the video. It's out now.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you guys. I love bantering Star Wars with you guys. And
likewise.
Keep it positive. Talk about what you love, and I did love Obi-Wan, and more season 2. Bring it on.
All right,
there you go.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks.
Chewie, get us out of here!
Well, that's going to wrap up things for us this week here on Rebel Force Radio. Big thanks to our guests, Nathan Johnson and Kyle Newman. Once again, Kyle Newman's film One Up, available on Amazon Prime Video. So check that out. Also, big thanks to our sponsor this week, MeUndies.
Love MeUndies.
Oh, yeah. I'm right here. I won't show them. There's rules about that sort of thing.
After the show.
After the show, right. If you want more Rebel Force Radio in your life, the best way to do that is to check us out on Patreon. That's right. In addition to listening to this podcast, you can also watch this podcast. So the weekly full show video is uploaded there, and that's a Patreon exclusive. Also, exclusive podcast that you can't find anywhere else except the Rebel Force Radio Patreon. There's the RFR Q&A, the Babu Freaks, Clone Wars Declassified Remastered, Filoni Files, Archive Highlights, and so much more. Those are available if you're a Patreon member. And also, when we do our live after shows and you want to call in, if you identify yourself as being an RFR Patreon, you'll get pushed to the head of the queue. And in addition, you're just going to be joining a great group of Star Wars fans. It really is, as far as fan communities go out there, it is absolutely the best. I think top-notch, classy folks that just love to talk about Star Wars. So you can find more of those details at patreon.com/rebelforceradio or go to our website, rebelforceradio.com, and click on the Patreon banner. Rebel Force Radio does have a YouTube channel. We'd love to help you or have you help us grow it. So we really appreciate dropping a like and subscribing to RFR on YouTube. You can find it at youtube.com/rebelforceradio. It's got everything on there. If you've been listening to this show for the decade and a half that we've been doing podcasting about Star Wars, you'll find some of those classic interviews that you might remember from years gone by, some of our better parodies and bits, and of course all the latest live streams are available there, all the after shows, whether it be Bad Batch or Obi-Wan or Boba Fett or 2 seasons of Mandalorian, they're all there. So we appreciate you liking and subscribing today. If you want to talk to us in between shows, we'd love to hear from you. We got an email address, show@rebelforceradio.com. That's show@rebelforceradio.com. The voicemail line, 708-320-1RFR. 708-320-1737. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the official website for all things and everything, Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. But the main thing you can do to help us out here is just keep listening, keep spreading the word. Tell the Star Wars fans in your life that haven't heard about Rebel Force Radio, hey, I've been listening to this podcast. It's pretty cool. You should check it out. You can subscribe and review Rebel Force Radio if your podcatcher of choice allows such a thing. Love to have your subscription and love to have those reviews. Just one rule, please.
Make them good.
You can find us streaming 24/7 at places like, of course, Apple Podcasts, Jedi News, iHeart, TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon, Audible, Pandora, Samsung. Anywhere you can find podcasts, you'll find us at Rebel Force Radio. And you'll find us here next week on RFR. We'll see you next time. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.
Rebel Force Radio.
This movie's so wizard.